Well, welcome back to Generally Assembled, your favorite House Republican podcast. Jason Gottesman once again joined by House Republican Education Chairman Jesse Topper. Bedford and Fulton counties, that's where you're from.
I mean, let's represent. I thought you were going to say an enthusiastic golf fan or baseball fan.
Well, I did that the last time, and I was trying to think about a new interesting way to introduce you. I gave it all about 3 seconds of thought.
Right now, how about Pirates fan? Because as of right now, they're 9-3, and we don't know that by July we're going to be able to say that and feel good about it. But I will say right now, shout out to the Black and Gold. Got the season off to a great start, and I'm excited.
Best baseball team in Pennsylvania right now.
Absolutely.
The Phillies have stunk it up so far.
And just real quick, I know what everybody will say, which is, well, check in May and June, and that very well could be true. This is the one thing that gives me hope. They're not clicking anywhere near on all cylinders right now. They got a closer who's blown 3 saves already. Brian Reynolds is not hitting to where he's going to hit. Mitch Keller is not where I think he's going to be. They still have Paul Skeens and Quinn Priester and some other guys in the farm system that are going to be coming up to pitch and provide some live arms. So they're not at peak capacity, and they still started out the year pretty solid. So as far as I'm concerned, there is a little bit of hope, obviously cautious optimism, but I think there's some hope.
Well, let's talk about something that's not peak performance right now, but that we should have some hope and optimism about. It's higher education.
Higher education.
That's what they call professional transition.
That's
actually it's more of like an amateur transition. It's like the Corn Ferry Tour of transitions.
I thought well, the Corn Ferry's pro.
It is.
That was like
the
U.S. Amateur. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, look, higher education. I think back to the governor's his first budget address. So not the one in the rotunda, but the one the year before on the House floor. And I remember he said, we can no longer do things in higher education the same way we've been doing and expect better results. And there was one person who stood up and clapped, and that was me, which shows the interest for most legislators in higher education policy. But from that time, of course, we know the governor has come out with a quote-unquote blueprint, which is really just a statement of a few ideas that he threw out there, but nothing behind it, no detail, no real plan to accomplish any of it. Just we're going to put together some working groups. But after a while, my concern was that we just weren't moving. We were just talking. Able to get together with some legislators, both in the House and the Senate, and come up with some real detailed plans of how to really move our system of higher education forward. And shockingly, it starts with investment in students as opposed to institutions, which we've talked about for many years here in the House Republican Caucus, but also talking about accountability. And we know that institutions are going to benefit, whether the money goes through students or whether it goes to the institutions, whether they use it for in-state tuition or however it's used. There has to be accountability. We have to have data to track, is the money that we're appropriating actually achieving results for our students and our families that we're saying it is? Because right now we're just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
We're just using anecdotal evidence at best, and some of the anecdotal evidence isn't very good. Right? We know the mounting student debt numbers. We know that kids are coming out with degrees in fields that they can't get jobs in. So we need to make sure that our system is focused on, if we're going to appropriate Pennsylvania tax dollars to it, then the system has to be focused on a return on investment for Pennsylvania families. That means changing the demographics of this state, getting students to stay here, to work here, to be in jobs that we need in our workforce, and to make sure that we have good accountability and transparency with the money. And that's what this is. That's what this plan is all about. That's what our plan is about as we continue to talk with the administration about how we can move this forward.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I really like, well, many things I really like about what this plan does, is that it's a real Republican plan. One, because it's got details. It's not just an idea. Two, it's a plan that will benefit Pennsylvania students and families, but it really comes with those two core Republican principles of accountability and transparency, while also on the back end saying, look, we want students to stay here. So this is, it's not just a giveaway, because giveaways are something that really you see on the other side of the aisle, right? We'll put more money into it. We'll lower the cost. We're not going to talk about how to.
Well, no, we'll lower the cost for some people while raising the cost for others. Right.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
Right. Sure. This is one of those plans that says, look, we can get to lower costs. We can get to better outcomes. But what we do need is some investment from students. and their future investment here in the Commonwealth. And we need accountability from these schools because, like a responsible parent, like a responsible government, we're not just going to give away without having those core principles of what are you doing, what are the outcomes, how successful is it, and what can you do to make it better?
When people talk about growing the economy in Pennsylvania, sometimes we think about that as numbers. Well, the number is how many people do we have here? If we continue to lose population, then you can't have a growing economy, right? If the demographics continue to suggest that the only people who are moving or staying in Pennsylvania are retirees, well, then where are your demographics going? We need to recruit and retain workers, workers in Pennsylvania for a workforce that desperately needs them if we're going to have a thriving economy. How do we do that? Through post-secondary education, whether it's certification, whether it's an associate's degree, whether it's an apprenticeship program, or whether it's a traditional 4-year bachelor's or anything higher. We have to be invested in ensuring that there is a return, that those individuals who are obtaining whatever those post-secondary education models are, certification or degrees, are then using what they have learned here in Pennsylvania, staying in Pennsylvania, and if not, then we need to look at ways to recoup that money and also then invest it in other ways, because that is really where when you talk about investments, what is the return, right?
Right, exactly.
And for years we have just heard you need to fund higher education, you need to put more money in, and we're asking for what? Every time we do, tuition still goes up, student debt still goes up, the workforce is still depleted. What are we getting for this? And I think it's time to put some data and some metrics behind it.
Yeah, I always find it interesting that Pennsylvania it's constantly rated as one of the top places to live. But it's also rated one of the hardest places to do business. We've put up so many barriers to students wanting to stay here to make it possible for people with certifications and technical degrees to go and take what they've learned and then open up a plumbing business. This is when you talk about higher education, and that conversation will be started here this week from a Republican perspective. Part of that also has to go along with what are we doing after people graduate to make it easier to start a business here, to get a job here, to work here, to grow Pennsylvania's economy in a meaningful way. Students don't leave here because they want to. They leave here because there's nothing for them. They leave here because when you go down to the the triangle down in North Carolina, the 3 cities down there, they have the meds and eds. They have the investment in building up jobs that people want.
You can do whatever you want to do down there, right?
Exactly.
Like they have that, and we could have that in Pennsylvania. I mean, Pennsylvania, because of the eclectic nature, the geography of the state. I mean, we have all of those jobs that are offered.
Right.
We don't have the weather maybe in North and South Carolina and Florida and some of those Georgia, but we have the opportunities. And at the end of the day, you're right. When I speak to students who are leaving, it's not because they just want to leave. They want to go to Ohio. Right? Who wants to go to Ohio? Right? Like, you want to be in Pennsylvania, but you have to make sure there are opportunities here. And look, I am convinced that we have the resources that other states don't have when it comes to higher education. We have United States flagship institutions in Pennsylvania. Right? Like, we need to use that. We need to use that to our advantage instead of constantly basically allowing students to go, to leave, and also not really holding the institutions accountable to say, look, just because you were a flagship institution, if you're not making changes, if you're not being dynamic, if you're not looking at what you're offering and whether it's of value, that's on you. Because the cost of higher education is not just on state government. It's on these institutions as well. So that needs to be part of the metrics. What is your cost? What is your return on investment for these kids, right? And those are conversations that we are having, but now we need to start putting some actual pen to paper, right? And stop waiting for the perfect moment or this perfect idea that's going to be universally accepted and say, no, that's not how we operate in government. It's not just going to be we're going to talk about it. We're going to do something about it. You know, and it's kind of ironic because, of course, the governor's slogan, right? Get stuff. I use air quotes for those of you who can't see, right? Get stuff done. Oh, okay, but you can't just say it. It can't just be a talking point. You got to work. You got to get in meetings. You got to get in the room. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to be willing, right, to make mistakes and to get in and try and figure out, these are going to be tough conversations. We're not always going to agree on it, but we've got to start moving this forward because guess what? These families that are making these decisions, these kids that are leaving, they're not going to wait around for 5 years for us to figure it out.
Sure.
We need to do it now.
Well, and Governor Shapiro said during his most recent budget address that if you have better ideas, bring them to the table. And I think what the governor is going to get in this Republican-led and really common sense and proposals, a results-driven way to make higher education better. It benefits students, benefits Pennsylvania, and it benefits everybody when Pennsylvania higher education results in more Pennsylvania jobs, Pennsylvania products, and Pennsylvania business.
Absolutely, and we're excited to roll it out.
Well, look, another rollout.
And we're rolling it out Masters Week.
Masters Week.
I mean, maybe, in my opinion, Jesse Topper, not a House Republican, not even a generally assembled podcast opinion, just Jesse Topper's opinion, the most perfect sporting event of the year.
And it's a golf course that's built, Augusta National is built for the Masters. People say if you go without the crowds, it's really not the most impressive golf course. It's wide open. It's it's kind of confusing. It doesn't really look like it does on television. It's a course. Bobby Jones built this course for the Masters. It's meant to have people lining the fairways. It's meant to have the huge crowds. It's meant to be intimidating. As a matter of fact, most of the Augusta National players or members don't do a lot of playing at Augusta National. They usually play at Augusta Country Club, which is right across the fence, because of just how unique of a golf course it is.
Because it was set up, like you said, everything is set up for this event. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it so perfect, in my opinion, is that you have this one event each year where you're playing it at the same spot, which is not, take most of your championships in obviously, except for tennis and a few other sports, but for a lot of the sports that we watch, and golf included, right? It's at the same spot every year, same time of year, every year. And there's just that sense of, and it's also a great time of year because it's kind of signals spring, right? It signals that the golf season is really beginning.
Yep.
And then the tournament itself is just always executed flawlessly. I can't remember watching a Masters and not being like, wow, that was just amazing.
Have you ever gotten Masters tickets? You ever
No,
been?
I have not had the opportunity. You?
No, I enter the lottery every year.
Yeah.
Never get picked. I know people who get tickets for practice rounds.
I want to see it in person. And one of the things that I hear, because I'm a PGA Tour nerd and I listen to PGA Tour radio on Sirius XM, Michael Breed on his show says nobody there ever has a bad day. Like, he was an assistant pro there for a while. Like, you walk on the grounds, everybody from staff to patrons, everybody's got a smile on their face. It's what they call it, like it's every day's Friday, right? And I want to experience that.
I like the strange rules at Augusta. Like, you can't run, so people speed walk to the spots that they want.
No running, no cell phones.
Yeah,
love it.
Yep. All right. I mean, who do you got?
So look,
maybe do like three.
Right.
Three
so the easy pick is Scheffler. Okay. When he's striking the ball well. So his average day still puts him in contention, which means anytime he plays above average, he's got a shot to win. I'm going to give you my long shot, though, who nobody's talking about, but he has always played the course well, has always been in contention, and I think is at the point of his career where he doesn't want it so bad that it would affect him coming down the stretch. You ready? Ricky Fowler.
Ricky Fowler.
Nobody's talking about him.
Interesting.
He's not necessarily in the best form, but last year we kind of saw that resurgence. He's with Butch Harmon again, which has really made a difference. And he's been there. He's been second in how many majors?
Yep.
And he has this freedom when you watch him with his new baby, he's a new dad. I just feel like if he gets into position, which is the key, I don't think he folds under pressure this time. I think he's got a new outlook. So my long shot is Ricky Fowler. My sure bet is Scotty Scheffler, and then the guy who's kind of in between. I at some point Rory's going to win one, and I think when he wins another major again, which he will, I believe it'll be the Masters. I don't know what it'll be this year, but those are the three to watch.
I can't put Rory down on any list. I want him to win. I want him to win really badly. I think it'd be great. And the same thing for Tiger Woods, although I put Tiger Woods down in my Masters pool. But I think this year there's going to be a breakout win. That's why I'm keeping my eye on Ludwig Aubert.
which is a very, very popular, quote, dark horse pick right now.
Yeah, I like him. I'll be keeping a look at, I think Akshay coming off of a win last week, even though with a separated shoulder issue. But, I mean, he said that's something that happens pretty regularly. I think, Augusta sets up well for a lefty. Always has. Lefties have some sort of advantage there. Sahith Tagala, maybe.
What about the live guys? Nobody's mentioned a live guy.
Look, I think you still got
Koepka, right?
you got to
Koepka's
count. You
always
got to
in.
count Brooks. DJ's a past winner.
Patrick Reed's a past winner.
Yeah, he hasn't really performed all that well. Joaquin Neiman, somebody you got to keep
That's
an
a
eye
big-
on, who
yeah, that's a
played his
popular pick.
rear off to get into, went all over the world to get into the top 50 in the world to be able to qualify for the Masters.
And the returning champ, right? John Rahm.
John Rahm, you have to keep him up there. That's absolutely right.
I just don't eventually, and I've said this before, I think Rahm is fine. He just went over to live. The longer the guys are in the live tour, and Koepka's fine because Koepka has a different mindset with majors.
Yeah.
Always has. But for the regular rank and file live guy, if you will, I do believe that there will come a point where just playing the 3 rounds on these resort courses will eventually stop getting them to the point where they can compete in majors. Now, it's been too soon. I don't think that's this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if this were to drag out and the unification doesn't come together, eventually you will lose your edge playing in 3-round courses, 3-round tournaments at courses that are not as challenging. That's my feeling.
Yeah, and look, I think what you have is you have some players who you will, no matter what, work to win an event, right? You just look at what Liv has done for Taylor Gooch and Dean Burmester, folks like that who continue to grind. Joaquin Neiman, go out and use it, and I think the Liv tournaments have so much money at stake. We don't see a lot of that preparation. Liv doesn't really push it out. They're more, they try to take this edge of being fun, right?
Right.
We take a lot of the stuffiness of golf. We're laid back, right? Yeah, you don't have to work so hard here. But I got to imagine somebody like Sergio Garcia, past Masters champion, lost in a playoff with Liv at Trump Row, which is not an easy course.
No, it used to be on the circuit.
Yes.
Right? It used to be
Exactly.
on our circuit.
Our
circuit. Listen to me talk with possession. Like I'm somehow on the PGA Tour board of directors.
But no, you're right. It was a place that they played actually World Golf Championship.
World
at.
Golf, yeah, WGC. Yeah.
And coming off of he lost in a playoff to Dean Burmester, but you got to wonder what kind of preparation Sergio's taking, not only to win the money, but also viewing it as preparation for the Masters.
And I do believe that, again, those guys are still in that hot competition. I don't think that's going to affect it. I think my thing is overtime. It's still that extra day. Look, think about how many tournaments would be different if they only played 3 days.
Yeah.
Think about how many Sunday finishes there have been where remarkable things have happened to affect who wins or not, right? We know that.
Yeah.
So that I'm telling you, eventually over time, I don't think it's this year. And you're right. Some of those guys grinding like Gooch and the guy who just won this week, Birdminster, they still have to grind because they're not getting quite the money up front that some of the big names are getting. But I think over time it will make an impact. But I just doesn't matter. I don't care who's there. I'm watching the Masters, and I'm going to love every minute of it.
I mean, it's and got to just give a shout out to the best app in sports, the Masters app.
Yeah.
The Masters app is the greatest app you will ever download. It's like everything at Augusta National. It's beautiful. It's easy to use. It's cheap, meaning it's free, and you have everything you want on it. You get the main broadcast, amazing featured groups, Amen Corner coverage, interesting hole coverage, Masters radio for whatever you can't see. It's truly the best app in sports.
Like I said, it is the perfect event.
And
much like Generally Assembled is the perfect House Republican podcast.
I just wish we could offer people $1, $1.50 pimento cheese sandwiches.
Yeah, I could go for one of those right now, actually.
You can buy the Masters pack. I don't know how much it costs, but they will send you souvenir cups. They'll send you the pimento cheese.
And just watch it in your living room.
They'll send you the egg salad. They'll send you if there's different levels of the box that they'll send you, but they'll do it. I mean, What an event!
I mean, listen, I don't know how we could work this, but if we ever could get a media pass and we could do Generally Assembled live from Augusta.
Well, I told one of our colleagues here who plays a lot of golf. I really wish we would have thought ahead, and we could have turned the studio upstairs into like a butler cabin, and then after session brought like
interviews.
members in, and done interviews and had like a whole Masters theme week here
That's
in the
great.
Pennsylvania
Oh,
house.
well, hey,
Like,
we'll start planning for next year.
yeah, it would be great if the weather broke. We get out, do a little golf of our own, it's springtime, summertime, and I'd much rather. Last year Sunday on the Masters, when John Rahm was winning, I was out on the golf course because I would much rather always play golf as opposed to sitting and watching golf. And trust me, there's no better time to get in a golf course than Masters Sunday.
No,
Nobody's out
Josh
there
Josh
playing.
has a tournament this weekend, so I'll be following along on the weekend on the Masters app. But excited for everything ahead, both in the General Assembly and on the golf course.
All right, very good. Well, that's Generally Assembled for this week. You can find us where all your favorite House Republican podcasts are found, www.pahousegop.com/mypodcast. Also on Apple, we're on Spotify, and you can really find us on YouTube. Check out the YouTube shorts that we do and put them up, some preview for what we have in the episode. And all right, for Representative Topper, Jason Gottesman here. That's Generally Assembled for this week. Beep, boop, beep.